9 money habits keeping you poor. This is a video that my team sent me to react to. So let's find out what are these money habits, and I will give my perspective as someone who has mentored women entrepreneurs around creating financial freedom for the last 20 plus years. Let's see if I agree. So this is a YouTuber named Nischa. I don't know because I've actually never heard her pronounce it. Maybe she'll say her name in the video, which would be great. No last name, just Nischa. And man, she's got 1.64 million subscribers. Like, that's pretty awesome. But just because she has more of a YouTube following does not mean I'm necessarily going to agree with what she has to say. But I love that she's a woman in the space with a large following. That's really encouraging. I love that she's a woman of color, because I just think that we need more voices like that. So even before watching this video, I just love that it exists, because so much of the financial planning industry, financial education, financial services, it's so male dominated, and there's so much gender bias that I really think we need more women's voices. And so I'm happy that she's here. Maybe I just found my new best friend. Looking forward to learning more about her. So when I click on her name, it takes me to her channel. It looks like she's into finance, self-development, business. Sounds like we would get along great. She says she's an investment banker with an accounting qualification. And on this channel, we explore all things personal finance, self-development, and business. Okay, cool. Definitely want to connect more with her. She sounds like my sister from another mister. But let's see if I agree with what she actually has to say. So here we go on Accountant Explains Money Habits Keeping You Poor.
I have spent the last decade of my life immersing myself in the field of finance and money through a degree in finance, a qualification in accounting, and then a career in investment banking. And one of the most life-changing skills I have learned through it all is how to handle my own finances, recognize my bad money habits, and break free from them.
Pointed out something really powerful, because just because you have all these degrees and work experience and titles, it doesn't mean that you have your own personal money stuff together. I've seen so many people that are money coaches, people like portfolio managers, hedge fund managers, CPAs, accountants, bookkeepers, and yet, so they know something about money, but they don't necessarily have their own personal finance stuff dialed in. So I just want to highlight that I see that distinction, and I want to give her acknowledgement for not just her book learning and her work experience, but then actually looking at her personal finances.
So in this video, I'm going to share with you 9 of the most common bad money habits that hold people back and tips on how to break out of them. Number 1, paying yourself last. I first heard of this in the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and it's one of the blueprints in achieving financial freedom. Robert explains that the way people pay their bills can be broken down into 2 types. The first way is the poor people's habit, and that is through paying yourself last. So as soon as your paycheck comes in, you then pay your rent, your phone bill, your subscriptions, you fund your social plans, and then you'll save whatever's left over, if there is even any money left to save. The second method he talks about is the rich people's habit, and they do the complete opposite. They pay themselves first, and that is what you want to do. Take 10% minimum and put that into your savings account the minute you get paid.
Okay, so let's talk about this, because I would agree that you want to pay yourself first. And that's probably something that you've heard before. Weirdly, I don't remember Robert Kiyosaki saying it, but it has been over 20 years since I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So I'm willing to assume she's correct there. But the thing is, like, even though you hear pay yourself first, like, how do you do that? What does that mean? So on the personal finance side, for me, it was like, okay, yes, pay myself first, but what if I don't have enough money to cover everything? How do I do that? So let's see if she talks about like how specifically to set up systems to make that happen.
Treat it like paying a bill. This is so important, and by doing this, you're guaranteeing that that money will be saved and won't just slip through your fingers through spending. A lot of people are probably thinking, there is no way I can do this. I live paycheck to paycheck. But the surprising thing is when you take that 10% and put it away, your mind will think of ways and structure your spending and structure your finances to last for the whole month, and you won't even realize that you're saving in the background.
Okay, so she's not even exactly talking about pay yourself first in terms of like having your business give you a steady paycheck. She's talking about making sure that you're putting money aside for savings and investing, which I agree with. And is it 10%? Is it 20%? Is it 15%? Is it 50%? Like different people have different rules of thumb on what percentage. But I think at the end of the day, the act and habit of managing your money is more important than the amount. So the key takeaway here is to have some money getting transferred from, your regular personal checking account into investments. And in the beginning, that could just be a separate savings account that you're calling investing until you figure out like what kind of brokerage account or TFSA in your Canada or 401k or Roth IRA if you're in the US, like what kind of account you might want to put it into, or even real estate, even if it's just a savings account where it's just getting earmarked for investments is a great place to start. And you want to be consistently putting money in there. Studies have shown that when you set up an auto transfer, your savings rate increases by 81%, which means 81% more wealth, 81% more passive income, 81% more goodness. So I would recommend having a separate account and setting up an auto transfer to it. So that is how you would treat it like any other bill like she's talking about. Because I've tried it both ways. I've tried manually moving a percentage of my income. And being an entrepreneur, my income changes all the time, right? So I tried like manually doing the percentage, which kind of works, but if I got really busy, I might forget to do it, or, it's just a little messy. So what I prefer now is to have a certain amount that's just automatically transferred, and then I can transfer a percentage or more on top of that as well. But if I forget to do that, at least a certain amount is going in. For me, that's enough to max out my retirement accounts, and that's good for now.
People don't realize how much they're spending on paying the bills, buying something new, going on that weekend away, and then they save whatever's left. But that is the backwards mentality. The key is to pay yourself first instead of making other people richer by buying their things before you pay yourself. The second bad money habit is getting comfortable with bad debt. It seems that debt these days is actually the norm. People are using debt to buy the smallest of things, to buy presents, to buy clothes. I have a straight rule. That is, unless I can afford to pay for that thing outright in cash, I shouldn't be buying it with any form of debt. Remember, credit card companies want you to be bad with your finances because that's how they make money from this. The average credit card interest rate is 22%, which cancels all kind of benefits and rewards these credit card companies are providing if you're not able to pay them off in time.
Okay, so let's talk about bad debt. I think there's a lot of this like good debt, bad debt. Sometimes you don't even know what it is, but what I'm hearing her say is like, don't get into like high interest credit card debt on things that you don't actually need to buy, is kind of like what I'm hearing this. So you don't need to finance a vacation or finance Christmas presents or finance a new couch or whatever. So yeah, I get that. And I will say, debt is such a heavily marketed thing, maybe the most heavily marketed, product in the world. And the credit card companies, they know how to hook your brain and get you excited. There's the points and the miles. And you hear people say like, oh, well, I pay it off every month and I get points. And so that works for me. Does it? Because here's the thing. What the studies have shown is that when you pay for something with a credit card, even if you pay it off every month and you don't pay the interest, which is what she's talking about, statistically, you spend 12 to 18% more because spending with a credit card doesn't activate the pain receptors in your brain the way spending cash or even, with a debit card where that the cash has to be there. And so if you're spending more, are you really getting ahead with those points and miles? So I think you need to take a real look at that. And this is something that I've gone back and forth with my husband on because he likes to put everything on the card and then get the points for it. And I'm like, okay, but if we had cash, would you have ordered that appetizer? Would you have ordered that second Coke? It's just easier to spend more when you don't have to worry about is that cash in my wallet or is that money in the bank account? So for many years, I went without having credit cards because I was like, if I don't have credit cards, I can't have credit card debts. ta-da, problem solved. And now I have started building up my credit again and like getting credit cards again, but I'm very, very, very careful. So one of them, it's just like a recurring bill for my business, goes on that card. I get a little bit of cash back. Okay, cool. But that's a set amount that I've already allocated in my cash flow plan. Okay, we're getting too deep into this, but I think you do want to be very, very conscientious about how you use debt. And if you're somebody like me that tends to be like, I have a pretty high risk tolerance and I have no problem spending money on myself. So I think that like my default money personality is spender. So it's very, very easy for me to rack up credit card debt if I'm not careful. And it's not like it's not gonna be necessarily like, oh, new shoes or something like that. My thing is personal development, right? Books, seminars, courses, coaches, masterminds. I've invested over $600,000 in my education at this point, and I don't regret it. That's part of the success that I've created, but it is something that I have to be very careful because I'm like, ooh, I could get this for the business. I could join this mastermind. I could hire this person. And it's very easy to like really rack it up if I'm not careful. So that's something I've had to learn.
This ties into point number 1, which is about paying yourself first. And essentially, it's saving enough so that you have a buffer behind you of about 3 to 6 months. This is super important and it will give you peace of mind just by having this buffer kept to one side and available to tap into if you need it. You free up that mental energy to designate to more important things. So how do you gather this 6 months of buffer? Is through that paying yourself first. Start putting that 10% away. And once you have your stockpile, then you can start using the additional money you save to building into your investment fund and looking at investments.
Okay, so I never heard anybody call it a stockpile, but I like that. I usually call that like a reserve fund or a contingency fund, but having some money set aside for life unexpected things. I agree. And in full transparency, I want to say that this traditional advice of having 3 to 6 months of living expenses, while that's great, for some people, including me, that advice is extremely frustrating because there's been times in my life where I'm like, how could I possibly save 3 to 6 months of living expenses when, I'm not even able to pay my bills or, I'm barely able to pay my bills, So let's say you are saving that 10%, right? So in 10 months, I'm like, I should never do math on the fly like this, but let's say your expenses are $5,000 a month. Okay. And you're putting aside 10%. So you want to have at least 3 months, right? So that would be $15,000. And if you're putting away $500 a month, based on her like 10% thing. So $15,000 divided by 500, it would take you 30 months. 30 months divided by 12, that is 2.5 years. 2.5 years just to build that up. That's really hard. And like in that 2.5 years, what are the chances that you're going to have to dip into that? The cat is going to need to go to the vet. Your car is going to need new tires. So I think if all you're doing is like putting money away and putting money away and putting money away like that, it can be extremely discouraging. So I just want to share that, normalize it. And I also think that this is somewhere where I kind of disagree with traditional financial advices, because on the one hand, it's like, it does help to focus, right? Like if you chase 2 rabbits, both will escape. So if you're trying to invest and pay down debt and, build up your reserve fund all at the same time, you're diffusing your energy, you're diffusing your focus. So it's not, it's not as potent, right? It's just like totally focusing on one thing. Let me obliterate the debt. Let me build my reserve fund or my stockpile. Let me start investing, so like that's true. But what's also true is that when you start investing, your identity changes. You go from being, an employee or a self-employed person or a business owner, and now you're also an investor. And so I'm of the mind that I think it's better to start investing sooner rather than later, even if it's just a little bit, even if you're still mostly focused on your stockpile or mostly focused on obliterating your debt, to have something, because it builds that investing muscle and it nurtures that investor identity. So I would probably still put a little bit of that towards investing as you're hitting some of these other goals. The other thing I want to mention that was really life-changing for me, and I give full credit to Dave Ramsey for this, is in his baby steps, he recommends starting off, even before you get down into paying down debt, that you start off by building a reserve fund, or he calls it an emergency fund, of $1,000. And what I loved about that is that when I was recovering from bankruptcy and like building back up again, 3 to 6 months of living expenses, I was like, I can't even afford Chinese food. Like this is, I'm already like beans and rice. Like this is going to take me forever. But when he said $1,000, it was like, oh, that's attainable, and ultimately $1,000 isn't enough. Like I do agree, eventually 3 to 6 months is a really good goal. Absolutely. Like let's get that going. But that $1,000 starter emergency fund, even that $1,000 is completely life-changing, because first of all, you can increase your deductible on insurance if you want to. Like I realized since I have $1,000, I could increase my deductible on my car insurance to $1,000 because I had it there. And then what that did was that allowed me to have lower insurance premiums. And now that money that was going to insurance before can now go towards building my savings and investments. Like that's really cool. So it starts helping you right away, even if you don't have an emergency. And then if there is something like my car got a flat tire, I need to get the tire replaced, and it became a minor inconvenience instead of what could have been a major issue. Oh, now I can't get a tire and I can't afford to get anywhere. And how am I going to meet with clients? And it was just like, oh, I have the money. I don't love that I have to spend it, but okay, life goes on and we just move forward. So I want to just like add that, starting with $1,000 being really powerful.
Number 4 is not knowing your income or expenses properly. Until you know what your starting point is, how do you know where you want to be? There's something called lifestyle inflation, and that is your spending will rise as your income rises. The more money you make, the more you spend. And it's a cycle. Make more money, buy a bigger house, buy a nicer car, spend more, make more. And it's crazy how normal this is, but it is a recipe for disaster. You want to be in control of your finances and mapping out where things are going. A budget tracker is super important, and you want it to include how much you're making, how much you're paying yourself first, that 10% we spoke about, your expenses, so your bills, your mortgage, your rent, your spending, your debt repayments, and so on. And you want to be keeping on top of that budget tracker. At least every 3 months, set a date night with the tracker. People who know exactly where they are financially, they know their assets, they know their liabilities, they have a clear goal on where they want to go financially and all the steps they need to take to get there, are more likely to get a lot of money and build wealth compared to people who just fantasize about money but have no idea how to go about it, how they plan to acquire it, or how to manage it. Just being mindful of this stuff and seeing those numbers in black and white will trigger you into action.
I completely agree. There's so much power in clarity. I've had so many financial coaching clients come, and once we help them get clear on what is their income, what are their expenses, what are their assets, what are their liabilities, all of a sudden they see opportunities and possibilities that they couldn't see before. And in some cases, we find out that they can be financially free right away. So maybe they go and they leave their job, or they move to France, or they get to like actually enjoy living their financial freedom vision years sooner than they expected, because now they have that clarity, and with that clarity comes confidence in making smart money moves. And even if you're not there and you're like, wow, I'm $500,000 in debt and no assets and blah, you always manifest better from a place of clarity. And if you imagine like looking at a map, you want the "You Are Here" sticker, and you want to look at where you're going. And if you don't have that "You Are Here" sticker, you don't know how to get where you're going. It's like in Alice in Wonderland where, I think it's the Cheshire Cat. He's like, well, where do you want to go? And Alice is like, well, I don't know. He's like, then it doesn't matter which direction you're going. So I just want to agree with her here. And I would say experiment with different resources or software programs to see what works for you. You know, my husband and I have been using Dave Ramsey's Every Dollar for a few years now. I really like that for planning, not as much for tracking, but that's one way to work. I'm experimenting with Monarch Money now, which so far I really like. I'll do another video on that once I've fully monarched myself and like really gotten into all the nitty gritty, but it helps to have some kind of system that works for you and your behavioral style so that you can stay on top of those things without it taking too much time. Like before I had kids, I used to input all this stuff in Quicken by myself. I had my own Quicken program and I would like literally type each transaction in, and I always knew exactly where I was on my business and my personal finances. And once I had kids, it was like, that's not happening anymore. So I hired a bookkeeping team on the business side, and on the personal side, it got messy, you know, which is why I started using Every Dollar, why I'm looking at Monarch Money now to see if I like the tracking. I think Quicken has come up with more like AI, you know, where to like auto categorize things for you. I don't know because I haven't played with it. But one way or another, you just want a system that works for you is my point. And I'll let you know how the Monarch Money thing goes.
Fifth bad money habit is having expensive hobbies. A lot of people like to shop, and I guess, yeah, part of this is retail therapy. But again, marketing, social media, and these multi-billion-pound organizations love to tell us how much we need to spend our money and spend our cash instead of keeping and investing it.
Yeah, hello capitalism. You know, we're bombarded with so many messages to like, buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this, treat yourself. And I think that the number one key to being successful with what she's talking about is if you can avoid looking. That is the key. And so what I mean by that is like, don't go shopping. Like, don't go just go look at stuff. Don't go look at a new car. Don't go look at houses, because it's like, once you see those things, then the, you know, the wanting starts, right? So I encourage you to not look. One of my friends was like, oh yeah, I went looking at BMWs the other day. And I'm like, you bought a BMW, didn't you? You know, it's just like the way it goes. So that's one tip I will give you. And of course, you know, if it's something about like wanting hobbies, wanting things to do with your time, then obviously, yes, I agree. Like, find things that are very fulfilling that don't necessarily cost a lot of money.
Purely on saving. If you want to improve your financial position, you can firstly save more of your existing income, or you can make more money and create more income streams. And the ideal combination is a mixture of both. You can't build wealth if you're making more money and spending it all, but you also can't if you're just focusing on the saving side, because there is a cap to how much you can save. Using those cashback sites will only get you so far. So to truly build wealth, you have to think of both sides of the equation, both how you will save a larger percentage of your income, but also how you will make more money. Saving money side has a cap. The making money side does not. It's infinite. There is unlimited potential upside, whether it's investing in the stock market, asking for a pay rise, starting a side hustle. You want to break the bad money habit of thinking that saving money is going to massively increase your wealth.
Okay, so here I agree. Like, I think that saving can be a really good prosperity practice, right? Because as you're channeling more money into your reserves, into investments, now you get a chance to get that money growing for you. It's like the goose that laid the golden eggs. You grow a bigger, bigger golden goose until eventually you can live off the golden eggs. That's the ultimate goal, right? And it's, I'm just going to say, almost impossible to save your way there. So I have seen examples of people who are extremely high earners and like exceedingly frugal. So they're able to like pack away massive amounts of money and accumulate over $1 million, you know. But even then, if you never invest it, let's say you get to the stage where you want to stop working or you have to stop working, what are you going to do? Accumulate millions of dollars and then just start spending it and hope you die before it runs out? Like, that's not a great plan, right? You have to at least invest it, at least invest what you're saving so that you're living off the golden eggs instead of killing the golden goose. And ultimately, she's kind of lumping investing and going and working for more money kind of into the same category of making money. I think those are two very, very different things, two very different skill sets with very different rules. So what it takes to make money, that's usually doing something to provide value to the marketplace, right? Providing value to other people. They give you money as a placeholder for the life energy to, create that value. Whereas money, like investing, that's getting your money working hard for you. So this is your energy. This is your money just multiplying. And I think you really want to do both, but especially this one, which is why I say, like, get into that habit, get into that prosperity cycle of your money going to making more money, and then that money goes and makes you more money, and then da 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 da. So your assets are giving you income, which you can then use to create more assets, and then you get into that prosperity cycle. And you can start that right now, even with just $1 or a euro or a yen, like get in that cycle, because the more you can do that, life's going to get easier and easier and easier, right? And if you could also do stuff to increase your income and make more money, that's great. But at the end of the day, like, it's not about how much money you make. It's what you do with it to get it working hard for you. So I've seen a lot of people who, never made more than $100,000 combined as a couple, right? And yet they're able to create $1 million plus portfolio because they've been saving and investing consistently. So I think that would be like the number one thing that you want to pay attention to, is make sure that your money is on your team and working hard for you, and not just like hanging out by the water cooler, not earning its keep. Because at the end of the day, your money can work for you much harder. It can work for you much harder than you can work for it. Like if you took $50 a month when you were 25 and you were investing that, let's say you did that from 25 to 65, 40 years, right? So you've taken $50 a month times 12 times 40 years, you will have invested $24,000 of your own money. Yay. If you could get a 15% ROI on that, was topic for a different video, but let's say you could get a 15% ROI, you would have over $1.5 million. So you put in 24 and you have over 1.5. So the majority of that is your money working and growing for you. And it's a lot easier to put $50 a month aside into an investment than to just go make $1.5 million. So there you go.
Taxes are going to be the single biggest expense in your life. Whilst everyone has to pay tax, a lot of people just pay it without considering how you can legally reduce your bill. Legally is the key word here. The wealthy, they have knowledge of illegal corporate structures that come with tax advantages. They hire tax advisors that help them minimize their tax bill. So if you want to get one step ahead, one of the best ways to increase your wealth is through understanding tax rules in a way that stack up in your favor. For example, investing through an ISA or a Roth IRA, which is an investment account that shelters your dividend and profit from taxes, or operating under a business instead of an individual if you're a solopreneur. All of this stuff is absolutely legal. And if you are someone who disagrees with this and prefers to pay more taxes, regardless of whether or not you can reduce it legally, then it doesn't hurt to understand the tax rules and reduce that tax bill so that you can instead use the money to give back to things that directly align with your values instead of letting someone else decide where that money should be going. If you want me to make a video on tax, I was planning to. I already have a summary on what I want to include, but I have been a bit skeptical about whether to release this. It's a topic that can go either way. So let me know in the comments below if you want to see.
Okay, I totally agree. Taxes are one of the single biggest expenses, often the single biggest expense for most people. And I was absolutely shocked to learn that 95% of the tax code is actually all about helping you save money on taxes. Because taxes have turned from this way to collect income to fund the government into more of a way to influence social and economic policies that the government officials want to see, enforced. So if they want people to have more kids, they give you a tax credit, right? If they want to see you invest more in low-income housing, they'll give you a tax credit or tax breaks or some kind of incentive to do that. And what I love about tax reduction strategies, love, is just like the insurance example I gave. You're taking money that's just going to taxes, and now you are putting it into investing and building your assets and building your golden goose instead. And so this allows you to build wealth faster without reducing your lifestyle at all. So I agree. I think learning tax reduction strategies, that's one of the best uses of your time to learn more about the tax code, because most of the time when you work with a CPA, they're going to be like, okay, give me your numbers and boom, 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 and they plug in they plug it into their software and they like help you file your taxes, right? But it's very rare that they're going to proactively work with you to implement tax reduction strategies. And again, like she's saying, this is all legal, which is fantastic. A Roth IRA in the US or a TFSA in Canada or an ISA that invests in stocks and shares in the UK, all of those are tax sheltered retirement accounts that allow you to invest and build wealth and let the money grow within the account tax-free. So that's a very easy, like low lift, opportunity that's available to everybody, and definitely one that's worth taking advantage of.
Waiting too long to invest. When you start having savings, you have that stockpile, that buffer that we spoke about, then you want to start looking at investing that money so that your money starts working for you, and you want to diversify those investments so you can weather different situations that come around in life. But you want to avoid leaving that money in a bank account, because inflation is a thing and it means that you're essentially losing money every year. So I have a mixture of safe investments, of riskier investments that I'm willing to lose as well. Start looking at different investment strategies once you've saved up enough. Don't leave any additional money more than you need to in a bank account. I have another video on what you can be doing with your money in times like the current recession, and I'll link that here for you as well. There's always going to be reasons why you can't invest, because you don't have time, you don't have enough money, you don't know where to start. But the longer you put off investing, the harder you will have to work to get that same level of financial freedom as someone who starts investing earlier. It may just be finding the right person or the right tools that help you resonate with your finances in a way that most appeals to you, whether that's through an employee perspective, an entrepreneur perspective, someone who is a less of a risk taker, someone who is more of a risk taker. But there will be someone who kind of matches your investing style more closely. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, you may also enjoy another one that I've linked here on building wealth and making money work for you.
Okay, so this is what I was talking about, like waiting too long to invest. See, I would start even earlier than her. I would start even just a little bit while you're still building your reserve fund or stockpile, because of all the reasons that I mentioned. But I would agree, like the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, right? And the second best time is today. So wherever you are, I encourage you to start now, even if it's just putting money in that little like investment savings account until you can increase your financial education and know like where to invest in some of these different like tax sheltered accounts that we talked about while you're educating yourself on that. Because as I'm recording this video, you can actually get a pretty great interest rate on a money market fund or a high yield savings account, like 4% or up. And you haven't been able to get that on savings since I was a kid. So may as well take advantage of that in the moment while you're educating yourself on some of these other investment vehicles and learning about a strategy that works for you. I really like that she said investment strategy. I just want to point that out because I don't hear a lot of people talking about that. But I do think that it all starts with your strategy. So when people are like, should I buy gold? Should I buy bonds? Should I buy this stock? You really have to start with the strategy first, because different investments are going to work better for different strategies. So you might hear Dave Ramsey say, never buy gold. It's a terrible long-term investment. Well, Dave Ramsey is running a buy and hold strategy. Gold isn't good for the buy and hold strategy, but for somebody else with a different strategy, it might be really great. And so that's why you always want to like look at the strategy first. So you can learn more on her channel, you can learn more on my channel, you can learn more through books. But this is part of the financial education, is learning strategies that so that you can choose one that works for your personality, your behavioral style, your time, because when we talk about passive income, there's a spectrum of passive income. Like a rental property isn't as passive as like a savings account that just politely sits there. Even if you have a property manager, you still have to manage the manager. There's a hassle factor there. So educating yourself about all of that and choosing strategies and investments that work for you is just a big part of the game. So I'd say overall, I like her. I like this. I would say that I agree with it. I don't think there was anything that was particularly like new or mind-blowing, but I thought she was very like kind and eloquent and gave solid advice. So I'm definitely interested in learning more from her and connecting with her. And I would say I feel like right now, if you want to increase your financial education and you want to get your investment strategy dialed in, I want to share my best financial education resource right now while we're here, which is my Financial Freedom 101 signature online 3-day event. You can go to financialfreedom101online.com to get all of the details for that. But that's where in just 3 days, we give you the money skills, tools, and systems that you need to build wealth and become financially free forever. So check out that link in the description or that URL, and you can get all the details and see if that's a fit for you. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. And if there's any other videos you'd like me to react to, let me know. And let me know in the comments if there was anything that particularly stood out as helpful from this video. And of course, if you don't mind tapping that like button if you haven't already done that, that really helps my channel. And I appreciate you. Happy investing.